Hey, what's up, family? Yo, I wanted to drop this video because I want to make some commentary about, I guess, some controversy that is going on with people in the indigenous community, referring to indigenous people of the Americas, Native Americans. And I'm making this in English because this conversation seems to be mostly happening in the United States and Canada, although it is also happening in Latin America. So, a lot of the revolutionary movements talk about this idea of land back, right? That, the idea the land has been stolen, which it has, right? And there's a need to cede the land back to the Native American folks. And just for context, land back is not only an American principle, right? We've seen it in Africa. We've seen it in parts of Asia. It is a global strategy that oppressed people used to get control of their land. And I agree with this. However, we have a different nature of problem popping up now. The issue is that when you look at a lot of the involvement, interactions with Native American topics and community and culture, you get people who I would describe as aesthetic fascists. It's a new word, aesthetic fascists. What does that mean? Well, I guess, hold on. It's aesthetic and cultural fascism. And here's what I mean by this. You have Native Americans who, we're going to use the example of a person who is a quote-unquote 100% bloodline Native American. I mean, think like the Pocahontas movie looking kind of niggas, right? These people, unfortunately, they have, like, how do you put it? I almost a hatred for people who do not look like them. All right? Or who didn't grow up in the same way as them. So, for example, let's say you're Mexican American, and physically you could look the same as this person who's a citizen of, let's say, Cherokee Nation or Seminole Nation or whatever Native Nation you please. The person who is from the nation with the government recognition will try to say that, oh, the person from Mexico who is a detribalized Native American is somehow a pretendian or a not real Native American because they are, I don't know, they don't grow up the same way. Maybe they don't speak the native language. Maybe they culturally are 100% Mexican, right? Which is not synonymous with being Native American, right? And so I wonder about that. I also wonder too with people like me, right? I'm an Afro Native American. That's my background, right? All the time. Oh, you're a pretendian. Oh, you're a fake Indian. You're trying to claim Native American heritage. You don't belong in this group, and you need to go back to Africa. Your land is in Africa. You got to reclaim your land in Africa. Okay, so my ancestors were enslaved by the Creek tribe of the Indians. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you something. If my family being slaves for 400 fucking years doesn't make us Native American to you, then fuck all of you. Okay, why are we gonna go and do this thing? You want to give the land back? Okay, sure. But then what? You're going to separate everyone by national origin and ethnicity and send people back, just like they're doing with the Trump people are doing? This does not seem good. This seems like fascism. So I guess, like, while I do believe in the concept of land back, I don't believe that it's fair to basically kick everyone else off the continent. Right? I do think you have to, as I said before in my other videos, there is a place, I believe, for a certain type of segregation, right? In certain circumstances, especially when it comes to white supremacy, okay? I do believe it's important that people who are phenotypically Negro have a space where we can be together, regardless of nationality and culture. I think it's important for people who are phenotypically Native people, they can also have the space, but then we have to understand we are on this continent for 400 years, everyone mixing around, everyone, not everyone, but you have a huge population of people who they're not going to want to just leave, and if you're going to have land back, you have to think, for the Indian nations will have to think, how are we going to integrate all these people, these Asians, Europeans, African heritage people? How are we going to integrate them to be citizens or members of this land back nation that we're trying to build? Because if the answer is just, oh, well, we want all the Black Americans and to find their roots and just to go back to Africa, then how are you any different than the fucking Nazis? I'm not understanding how you're any different, And another thing I notice is you get all these people who are critiquing leftist content creators, or leftist ideas, I should say, like Marxist-Leninism, right? So, yes, was Marxist-Leninism made by white people? Yeah, for sure. However, does that mean that it's a static idea that cannot change and is always a colonizer concept every time it's applied? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There have been many Marxist, Leninist, communist movements among native peoples in Africa, in the Americas, that incorporate the concepts of Marxist-Leninism, right, in a native context, right? That is what's important. So, and it's just so funny on the internet, you can't trust anyone. Everyone has a fucking angle, especially the goddamn CIA. It's like, I've been noticing, you get all these, whenever the socialism or communism seems like it's kind of getting some favor, you get all these ethnic creators, who are like, oh, we are pro Black Lives Matter, we're pro Native American. But, let me tell you about those leftists, and let me tell you about those communists, and that didn't work, and, we've tried that already, and that doesn't work, and that's a colonizer idea, and blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you're talking about. People have died. You understand? People have been slaughtered. Native tribes have been slaughtered in Latin America because they adhered to Marxist-Leninist principles, because they were a bunch of commies. Okay? And it didn't look like, some Soviet Union bullshit where they just took everyone, did a population exchange and shipped a bunch of niggas to gulags. That didn't happen. They took into account who had too much and asked that motherfucker to share, and they didn't. They took his fucking head. That's how it works, And a lot of you are afraid of that because you like your comfortable little privileged lives. You like to be able to look at your aesthetic and your culture and think you are better than other people. That's the thing here for me that I find to be disgusting. I have the same critique for for Marxist-Leninist, so-called Marxist-Leninist countries too, like China, for example, right? China claims to be a communist country, but I don't see a pathway for citizenship for African people in China. Do you? No. They seem to be very, very into the idea of, oh, we are Han Chinese, and this is it. This place is for us, by us. It's an ethno state, right? And essentially, if you are from another origin, your ass doesn't belong here. Go back to your own continent. We live in the modern world, folks. Like this, we're not going to be able to live that way. It's just not practical. Even though it seems desirable, I understand the desire to want to do it. It is not practical, and it will not work. Because that's how you end up with a bunch of failed warring states. You're going to be like the goddamn Greek city-states. We don't want to live like that. People don't want to live this way. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't know. I feel like it's really important to really center what it looks like to integrate people who are different. Yeah? It's not giving them all the power, especially with white people. White people, their whole integration process is going to be very tricky because, they like to control and they like to run everything. Yeah? But in terms of like what happens to everyone else, when the whole land back idea takes place, is a very, very important conversation. And as long as we're so caught up on, for example, the issue with the freedmen of the Seminole tribes and the Creek tribe and the Cherokee, and there's a few other tribes who they don't accept you, or you just got it accepted recently. as being Native American, you know? And this feeling is strong. It is strong. And as long as there's people feeling like that, who think just because they look like, you know, they have the two braids on the side of their head and they have the cara de nopal, that they're better than you, and they're somehow, they're the best kind of Indian and the only kind of Indian, that's not right. And that ain't true Native teaching either. Because, you know, in the beginning, when the colonialism happened from Brazil to Canada, you had white people, black people, Asian people, who didn't want to live in the colonial structure. They don't want to live in the white man's experiment. And they fled to live with the native peoples. And 9 times out of 10, they were accepted as a part of that community. The way it's looking today, it don't look like it's going to play out that way. And so I don't know. I just want to open a discussion about that shit, you know? Anyway, just my 2 cents. Ciao.